joined us for today's meeting of Cabinet, and we've got several important issues to consider at today's Cabinet meeting. But before we begin the formal meeting, I've got some housekeeping information that I'd like to share. First, please be aware that this meeting is being live streamed and that a recording of the meeting will be available to view on the Council's website. Second, the Council allows filming and photography at its public meetings, so please feel free to take pictures and post to social media during the meeting. We've had a lot of that over the last week. Third, can I ask everyone to turn their mobile phones to silent or vibrate whilst the meeting is taking place? And finally, in terms of housekeeping rules, there is no fire alarm test scheduled for today. So if the alarm sounds, please leave by the nearest exit marked fire on either end and proceed directly to the fire assembly point in the Charles Swift Square opposite the multi-storey car park, which is in that direction. We're now going to move on to the formal agenda for the meeting. So agenda item number 1 is apologies for absence. Matt, as Senior Democratic Services Officer, please report any apologies for absence.
Good afternoon, Chair, and through you, we have apologies for absence from Councillor Ray Bisbee, Cabinet Advisor for Adult Social Care.
Thank you very much, Matt. We move on swiftly to agenda item number 2, which is declarations of interest. Now, does any member wish to declare any disclosable pecuniary interest or non-statutory disclosable interest? Councillor Hogg.
Thank you, Leader, and through you. There is an item of business that relates to Peterborough Limited, and I am still currently the chair of Peterborough Limited, so I will be excusing myself from the debate and not voting on that particular item, but I've been told that I don't need to leave the room on this occasion because there's no pecuniary interest, so I won't have to get out and leave. It's okay.
Thank you for informing us on that. And we now move on to agenda item number 3, which is minutes of the 16th of September 2025 Cabinet meeting. Now, we're being asked to approve these minutes as an accurate record. If any member does not agree, would you raise your hand now? No. All seem to be in agreement, which is good. Agenda item number 4 is petitions and public questions. Have we received any? I don't believe we have.
No petitions or questions received, Leader.
Thank you very much, Matt. We're now going to move on to our strategic decisions of today, Cabinet. And agenda item number 5 is our CQC inspection update. The item can be found on pages 3 to 80 of the agenda. Councillor Neil Boyce, Cabinet Member for Adult Social Care, please can you introduce the report? Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Leader. I'm delighted to introduce this report, which reflects the significant achievements for Peterborough's Adult Social Care Service. The Care Quality Commission has awarded us an overall rating of good following a long assurance process. This result not only demonstrates the remarkable progress made since re-establishing a dedicated Peterborough service, but also celebrates the commitment, expertise and compassion of our workforce. This report highlights the strengths recognised by the CQC, the improvements already underway, and our continued determination to build on this success for the benefits of residents across our city. The report seeks acknowledgement of the result and approval for the continuation of the Adult Social Care Assurance and Development Plan for addressing areas of improvement identified by the CQC. I would like this time to thank the Director, Assistant Director for Adult Social Care, Heads of Service and all the frontline team for their exceptional work in achieving this result. Thank you, Leader.
Thank you. What a wonderful way to start this Cabinet meeting, Councillor Boyce. Now, do we have any questions or areas of debate or comments at all? Anyone like to make any comments? Councillor Katie Cole.
Thank you, Leader, and through you, I just want to say a huge well done and congratulations to the current Cabinet Member for Adults and Social Care, but also the previous Cabinet Member for Adults and Social Care, because I know how hard this has been to get through and to get a good rating. I noticed with the areas for improvement, it's about assessment. of need, could I just ask the Cabinet Member or the Service Director what the time frame for improvements in that area is, and how will we know when that area becomes good?
Thank you very much. Steve, would you like to elaborate?
Yeah, so we've been working on our improvement plan since the inspection in March. So we've made quite a lot of progress in terms of particularly around reviews. So the level of reviews that we are carrying out now are up to around between 72 and 75%, which is kind of well above the national average now. So we've been working to kind of improve that, which was the key area that we kind of needed to improve. And we've been doing quite a lot of work to make that sustainable. So not needing one-off pieces of work to be able to achieve it, but doing it within the kind of business as usual resource we've got by changing and improving the way we work, and using things like artificial intelligence, magic notes, things like that to be able to increase that productivity.
Thank you. Anybody else? No? Well, I'd really like Steve, the Service Director, to, because I want to shout about the rooftops about this. I think this is such a good news story. It's probably been one of the highlights of the year, hasn't it? So Steve, to just give the public, members of the public and those who are watching here, a little bit of an overview over some of the fabulous work that we're doing both in the city with stakeholders and how we got here. Just to say that we are actually in the country, we're proud to say that we are one of the really good ones who are up there, aren't we, with our innovations. So it'd be great if you could give us a little bit of an overview on that, Steve. Thank you.
Yeah, so I think we've got an overall percentage, so you get a word and you get a percentage, so we got a percentage of 70%, which makes us quite a good. And I think for us it's been like a real journey since we uncoupled from Cambridgeshire towards the end of 2023. And I think at that time we had a lot of teams with very little staff. We had very little resource, and I think we had to start again really in a lot of areas in terms of designing processes, recruiting staff, and really thinking through how we did things differently. So I think that's what we've tried to do. I think we've tried to embrace things like technology, artificial intelligence, and again think differently about how we do it. And I think it gave us a little bit of a blank sheet, but we've had to kind of move quickly to be able to implement and kind of move that on. But I think there's been quite a lot of support from across the council. So I think working with, it's not just adult social care, it's a team piece of work, isn't it, that we rely on other parts of the council to be able to achieve. And thanks to those and some of our partners across the system who we work with. So it's about working together, collaboration, and I think just passion and dedication as well from our staff, who I think when we uncoupled from Cambridgeshire, I think what I'd said to staff was, this is your mum and dads, these are your brothers and sisters. We can really kind of commit to getting it right for your families and for the people that we work with. And I think staff have really embraced that and have been really committed to kind of improving and kind of taking us on that journey.
Thank you so much, Steve. And if I could add to that before we move on to the recommendations, that for those watching and those members of the public, to understand the gravity of some of our services, especially in adult social care, that we are literally looking after some of the most frail and vulnerable within our city and society, which is why this is so important to make sure we get it right. And there are a couple of work streams. We've got safeguarding. We're obviously looking at the learning difficulties. We're looking at our commissioning services and how our services actually provide safe care to those in the community. And some of the real highlights that I've seen, obviously Neil work with Neil's other work with the Good Neighbours Rural Peterborough, who do some fantastic work in the community as well as one of those partner organisations. But aside from that, some of the things that we've done in terms of equipment provision and the steps that we've taken to make sure that people's lives literally are safeguarding. And when we also quote this as being a service literally dealing with life and death, we're at the forefront. And I'm so pleased, and I want to congratulate the team on behalf of the Cabinet, as well as Councillor Neil Boyce, for really working hard at this and making sure that across the board our services have been deemed to be good with the CQC, which is a difficult one to achieve. So congratulations, and thank you very much for that report. Now, we're going to be moving on to recommendations, members, which are stipulated on page number 3, which you've all read. And I'd like to ask, are you content to agree the recommendations? Yep, all agreed? Wonderful. Thank you. Thank you very much. What a wonderful start to this meeting. Now we move on to agenda item number 6, which is the Peterborough Draft Local Plan Alternative Site Options Consultation. This item can be found on pages 81 to 102 of the agenda. Councillor Mohammed Farouk, Deputy Leader and Cabinet Member for Growth and Regeneration. Please can you introduce the report?
Thank you, Leader, and through you. Following the draft local plan consultation in spring 2025, our comprehensive review of all potential development sites has been undertaken. Based on feedback received, an alternative new settlement is under consideration. Given the scale and potential impact of the proposed site at land west of Wittering, a dedicated consultation is recommended to gather further insight before any decisions made. Cabinet is asked to approve alternative site options documents for public consultation. This focused exercise will help the Council understand community views and statutory stakeholder feedback. Please note, this consultation does not indicate a final decision or whether Wittering site will be included in the submission version of the local plan. So just to emphasise that, Leader, we are putting an additional consultation on an additional site. It's not consultation of the whole process. It gives the Council extra capacity to have those extra houses on our register so that we could meet the tight deadlines of submitting this local plan and not failing at the final juncture. This is not directly linked to any other site or any other housing sites within Peterborough, whether it's Castor and Aylesworth or whether it's Northborough or anywhere, Glinton or anywhere else. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Farouk. Do we have any questions or points of debate or any conversation at all? Councillor Christian Hogg.
Thank you, Leader, and through you. It was just a question for officers, just merely for those members of the public that maybe have found out about this particular item of business, and it's kind of been covered by Councillor Farouk, but I just wanted to kind of double underline the fact that where there's been the consultation came out for the draft local plan, there were some people that were put objections into for other sites. They're not mentioned here, but there's a reason for that. This is a bolt-on to that, and it's going to go back out for consultation. Is that have I got it right? Is the point, I suppose?
Thank you. That is correct. Yeah. So due to the scale of this site, it's prudent to carry out this extra consultation. Don't think it's fair on residents to see this site at the submission stage, which is due to go to publication for consultation in August this year. We will review all of the sites that have been commented on and we've had responses on from the draft local plan, and any changes to sort of small and medium sites will be made to the submission version, which, like I say, will go for consultation, and residents and statutory stakeholders will have the chance to have their say on those at that stage, and then that will go to the inspector as part of that process. So, yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Hogg, and thank you, Officer. Anybody else who'd like to make any points of discussion at all or ask any questions? Okay, well, I think that we can sum up quite considerably well that this is about a consultation and that we encourage those to whom this affects to take part in that consultation indeed. So I would encourage anybody to take part in that consultation if it is of a matter of interest to them. And therefore we move on to approve the recommendations that are set out in the report on page 81 that we're taking as read. And are we content to agree that recommendation, members? Yep. Thank you. Moving on. Agenda item number 7 is allocation of funding and award of contract for RIBA stages 3 and 4 for the pool and leisure development. So for this, we have Councillor Zamir Ali, Cabinet Member for Communities, Poverty and Public Health, and the report can be found on pages 103 to 114 of the agenda pack. Please can you introduce the report?
Thank you, Leader. Cabinet is being asked to note a significant progress now being made on the developing of a new pool and leisure complex. Members are requested to agree an award contract to Alliance Leisure for the next stage of the development, subject to full council agreeing the necessary budget being added to the capital programme for this purpose. The next stage of the development will concentrate on the detailed design, cost construction plan prior to the commitment to build? Oh, the commencement of the building.
Thank you very much, Councillor Zamir Ali. And before we move on to questions, let me take the opportunity to thank our MP for Peterborough, Andrew Pakes, for advocating very robustly on our behalf and to government for securing the funding that is so needed to kick this project off the ground. So I'd like to put those thanks on record. So we now move on to questions, discussion and debate. Does anybody have any questions at all? Councillor Christian Hogg.
Thank you, Leader. Through you. I note on page 105, it talks about the various elements that are in the building. You've got the pool and the teaching pool and the cafe and the soft play. One thing I'm noticing that's missing in that list is there going to be a steam room and sauna at all? Do you know?
Yeah, we're all interested in that question.
Thank you for that. The facility mix at this point in time has been carried out with our stakeholder group, and at this point no one has flagged or raised to explore putting a sauna and steam room in the new facility. It doesn't mean it can't go in there moving forward when we go out, because we will go out to more public consultation through this process, but at this point in time that is not flagged to go on the poolside area. And part of the reason there is obviously we've got a varying offer across the city, and as you know, Councillor Hogg, obviously Premier Fitness has the health suite option, whereas this pool at the moment doesn't have that, but we can explore looking at that moving forward.
Thank you. Councillor Mohammed Farouk.
Thank you, Leader. And of course you've done the right thing of thanking people who are funding it, Andrew Pakes particularly, but I would like to take this opportunity to particularly thank the officers on this occasion for working and playing ahead of the game, having the business plan ready before even the funding arrives, having the contractors ready before even have the funding. So I think it's great preparing the business plan, identifying the location, and I look at the plan and it's the most ambitious timescales this council has ever delivered. So my quick question, or the emphasis, is that are we still confident to deliver this in extraordinarily short timescales of summer 2028?
Thank you very much for your question and for your kind comments, both really appreciated. I'd just like to reassure, I suppose, Leader and Cabinet, that we are working at pace on this. We are making very good progress. We are working very closely with the department to make sure that our business case is robust, that it is compelling, and all the information at the moment, it suggests that we are well on track with that. I'm expecting that first draft to come through by the end of January. If we get everything right and we're happy with it, then I'm looking to be submitting probably end of February time. With any luck, we'll have a decision from government back April, May, that sort of timetable. So we are well on track with our business planning and procuring of these services to be developed. As with any capital project, of course, there can always be slippage. So I'm saying that the programme at the moment is still on track. There is always that caveat that you don't know what you don't know until you start getting on site and start building. But at the moment, we are on track with our whole programme.
Fabulous. Thank you very much. Councillor Katie Cole.
Thank you, Leader, and through you. I'm really excited to see that the plans for the pool are going ahead. As somebody who learnt to swim in the old regional swimming pool, I've got loads of memories from myself. I had parents watching me falling asleep in the learner pool by mistake. Whoops. But we're the fourth fastest growing city in the country, and we don't have a major swimming pool. So with my Cabinet Member for Children's and Education hat on, I know how schools have found it difficult to find spaces for swimming lessons, which is part of the national curriculum. So I can't wait for this to come downstream and online, and I look forward to seeing this move forward. So thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Cole. Councillor Mohammed Jamil.
Thank you very much, Leader. Do you have any idea where it's going to be located? So I know that we've looked at various sites, but is where it is at the moment, where it was at the moment. Are we going to move somewhere else? It's one of the things people want to know out there.
Yeah, thank you. That's a really important question, and I imagine there's a lot of interest in that. We've been really thorough in our assessment of where this pool could go, leisure facility could go. We've looked at multiple sites right across the city, and we knew there was a desire to keep it quite centrally located for ease of access and other regeneration outcomes that we want to achieve through this. So without rehashing everything that we've done, we've looked at around the embankment area, and the preferred option at the moment is to be going for just off Bishop's Road. We looked at two locations there really, one right next to the Lido and then one just slightly further to the side of that really, just away from the Lido. And there's a few things that we had to take into account when looking at those options and deciding what is the best model to go for. One of the things, of course, is we didn't want to constrain the university in any of its development. So making sure we're not building something that could later on have an inconsequential impact that we weren't aware of. Also, there's the matter of what planners like and what they want to see, and the guidance that we need to take into account from their perspective. We've got heritage on that side. We've got views of the cathedral, very important to the city, as one of the last remaining unobstructed views of the cathedral on that area, and that's important that we keep that aspect and we don't impact on that. And of course the Lido itself is a heritage building. So we've looked at two sites on that area, and the one at the east of the Lido was first looked at, but actually our preferred option is just to the east and south of that. I don't know if there's anything else, Jamie, you want to add?
No, I think you've covered most of that, Ian. And like I say, we did quite a bit of research around land location across the whole embankment, and they're the two that we landed on, working with our external consultants as well. And at the moment, we've got surveys taking place across those sites.
Thank you. Our Director for Place and Economy, Mr. Adrian Chapman, would like to come in.
Thank you, Leader. I had 3 quick points just to add. Firstly, we're as close as we think we can be to the original regional pool site. That's important because we want people to feel a sense of continuity. Building on that site, the existing site, would increase the cost quite significantly because of the remediation works that would be required. That leads me to the second point that Ian's already mentioned, and that is the proximity to the fantastic multi-award-winning university that we've now got in the city. We're trying to, and in fact, the government, when they spoke about funding this through the Growth Mission Fund, specifically quoted the university as being an integral partner in the development of the pool. We see it the same, and we're trying to build a green campus. We're up to phase 3, but potentially 8 phases to come in the future, and a regional pool and fitness centre that is open to the public but located alongside that campus will attract students to the city. The evidence speaks volumes up and down the country of that, and will really help anchor that campus in our city centre. And then the third point is that the new Signet Bridge, which will start to be constructed in the spring, a couple of months' time, the landing point on the opposite side of the river to where we're sitting now will be dead opposite the entrance to the new regional pool. So all in all, we think that a location that the team have worked really hard on just sings beautifully to what we're trying to achieve.
Fabulous. Thank you very much for that. Councillor Mohammed Jamil.
Thank you for that, Leader. One of the other things that often us councillors get asked about is, if we're building a new swimming pool, why is it not going to be an Olympic-sized swimming pool? Any comment?
And I agree, it would be a nice thing to have for the city, and we always want to be as ambitious as we can, don't we? But we did look at that and spoke to some of our stakeholders, spoke to Swim England about the demand for a 50-metre size pool within Peterborough. And the feedback that we had from them was there wasn't a huge demand in this area for that length of swimming pool. And of course we had to take into account the costs of that. It's a huge cost to build something that size, but not just the one-off capital costs. The ongoing revenue cost to heat that amount of water is quite significant, and it probably would mean that this project wouldn't be viable, and I would be struggling to sit here and justify the costs to you. So we did look at it quite closely, but just from the two perspectives, one of demand and one of cost, we've rejected that and gone for something that's sustainable and affordable and can meet most of the needs of the public.
Thank you. Are there any more comments or questions? Okay, so in summary, this is a really good news story. We've had some wonderful contributions from across the board. On the 50-metre pool, one of the things is that we've got the Lido, which is also 52 point something metres. Having a look at options around that, expressing the need to use that as an opportunity and see that as an opportunity and not to be overlooked being a heritage site for us, I think is something that could be explored. We've spoken about steam rooms and saunas, Jamie. Thank you very much. And also just that this is something that we said at the beginning of this administration that was deliverable, achievable. Our officers have done a commendable amount of work in making sure that we're able to now see this, hopefully with spades in the ground, and that's something that we've spoken about. So I'd really like to congratulate you separately on that too. All in all, a wonderful news story yet again for our city, for our councils, for our officers and for our administration. So a collective congratulations all round for this. Moving on to recommendations now so that we can get it over the line, is that you've seen the recommendations set out in the report on page 103, and on the back of that I'd like to ask, are you all content to agree those recommendations? Fabulous. Right, so agenda item number 8. Now this is Peterborough Limited Reserve Matters, which is grazing licence related to the area known as the land adjacent to Flag Fen, Northey Road, Peterborough. This item can be found on pages 115 to 134 of the agenda. Councillor Zamir Ali, Cabinet Member for Communities, Poverty and Public Health. Please can you introduce the report?
This is a wonderful report. Now, this report seeks Cabinet consent as a reserve matter for Peterborough Limited to enter into a licence to occupy land adjacent to Flag Fen. The licence will allow Flag Fen to graze sheep on this land, which in turn for additional space on the site for car parking during busy periods. This will help to increase visitor numbers at the site and allow people to access one of the country's most important heritage sites. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Zamir Ali. So, does anybody have any questions? Nobody's even going to ask about the species of these sheep? They're Swar sheep, by the way, people. They are Swar sheep, aren't they? Yeah? What's characteristic about these sheep, may I ask? I want to ask a question. Anything we know? Got particular type of wool? Are they particular to the Peterborough area, do we know, or the Fens? No? I will look it up. Katie?
Thank you, Leader. I just want to say that anything that we can do as a council to increase visitor numbers to Flag Fen is really important, especially after the destructive vandalism that happened the last year sometime. So I know this is a consent item, but Flag Fen is a key historical site, so anything that we can do. And I really look forward to the current Cabinet member in some photos with the sheep.
Thank you. And I think that's a point very well made. And actually, it's the only Bronze Age heritage site in the United Kingdom and one of very few in Europe, which I think is really important, that we really do have a gem here, don't we, in our city. So leading on to that, we're being asked to approve the recommendations as set out in the report on page 115. Members, are we agreed to approve the recommendations? Thank you very much. We now move on to agenda item number 9, which is, thank you very much, officers. Moving on to agenda item number 9, which is Key Theatre Capital Works Continuation Impact. This item can be found on pages 135 to 144 of the agenda. Councillor Mohammed Jamil, Cabinet Member for Finance and Corporate Governance. Please can you introduce the report?
Thank you, Leader, and through you. The report relates to the ongoing capital works at the Key Theatre. The latest extension of these necessary renovations, especially those addressing the rack remediation and additional unforeseen issues, continues to have significant impact on the theatre's operations. ongoing support for the operator remains vital, not only to protect their immediate future, but also to preserve the city's vibrant arts and entertainment scene. By investing in these institutions, we secure long-term advantages for the local economy, community well-being, and Peterborough's standing as a hub of creativity and cultural excellence. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Jamil. Does anybody have any points or any discussions that they would like to embark upon? Any at all? Councillor Farouk.
Thank you, Leader, and through yourself. Just a quick question on forecasted completion date. Are we monitoring it to ensure that we meet the completion at the forecasted date so that there be no further extensions to this?
Absolutely, yes, we are. So as anticipated, these will be completed by the 6th of April, and we are hopeful that it'll be no later than this date, so we are as certain as we can be.
Thank you so much.
Thank you,
I'd just
Councillor
like
Hamid
to add to that fact that this extension has to be given because when we started the work, we then found out that additional work needs to be doing when we took back part of the roof. So we're confident that this will now be the end of the works and we will meet the deadline set out.
Thank you, Councillor Katie Cole.
Thank you, Leader. I just wanted to ask if, for any reason, the works are extended, is there any clause within the contracts for the building providers that we can claw back some of the money that we've had to continually give the theatre to ensure that they are not out of pocket because of works that are overrunning?
Because these were unforeseen issues, at present we are unable to reclaim any of that back. However, we're working very closely, and anything that we can is being recharged back to that contractor. What I will make clear is that we are prioritising the auditorium works so that even if there are some external works that need to continue to take place, we'll be able to open the auditorium to allow them to do their performances while we continue any of the other works.
Thank you very much. Any more questions or discussion? Well, thank you. I'd like to thank you, Felicity, very much for presenting that. And colleagues, we're being asked to approve the recommendations as set out in the report on page 135. And are we content to agree those recommendations as read? Thank you. Right, moving on to agenda item number 10, which is disposal of the barn. This item can be found on pages 145 to 162 of the agenda. Councillor Mohammed Jamil, Cabinet Member for Finance and Corporate Governance, please can you introduce the report?
Thank you, Leader. It gives me great pleasure to introduce another good news story for our city, to present this report to Cabinet for the disposal of the land to the rear of the barn in Warrington, alongside separate interests in disposing of the barn itself. Subject to the required planning permission, a sale of the surplus land enables the delivery of a much-needed hydrotherapy pool and rehabilitation facility, a unique, high-value community health asset for our city, without imposing on the ongoing capital operational obligations on the council. In addition, this disposal will provide a capital receipt to the council and remove any ongoing maintenance liabilities associated with the land and property. The initiative directly supports our public health objectives and promotes inclusion and accessibility. But more importantly, it will create a facility that can adapt to future commissioning requirements and the evolving needs of our population, bringing meaningful benefits to the residents locally and further afield. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Mohammed Jamil. And on this occasion, I'd now like to wholeheartedly, warmly invite Councillors John Fox, Councillor Sarah Hillier and Councillor Judy Fox to address the Cabinet on this item, as this decision directly impacts their ward. Welcome, Councillors. So, thank you very much for attending today, and I'd like to invite Councillor John Fox to say a few words.
Thank you, Chair. And I did have a speech made, but technology and me don't go work very well. I thought I'd copied it to my hard drive, but I haven't. Never mind. I don't need a speech. I'll speak from the heart. This has been going on since July 2022. I feel sorry for the Friends of St George's Hydrotherapy Pool. I won't go into that. There's a time and place to say what I feel about it, and here isn't. But what we have is an opportunity to provide a facility that is much needed for those people that benefit from hydrotherapy, and that's the people that use St George's. Now, it's not only a hydrotherapy pool. This is a project that if it comes across and gets through planning, will be the best thing that's happened in this area. The nearest facility is in Aylesbury. So it's not for Warrington or Peterborough or Cambridgeshire. It's for the surrounding areas as well. So I hope you will support this, because it is a win-win. It's good news, and it's time we had some good news. So please support it.
Thank you, very well said. Councillor Sarah Hillier, welcome. Would you like to say some words?
Yes, thank you, Chair. Hydrotherapy is an invaluable tool as part of a recovery and recuperation process for many injuries, such as spinal cord injuries, brain injuries, stroke, and post-operative recuperation. It can also provide pain relief and therapeutic value for degenerative conditions, such as MS and arthritis. The benefits of hydrotherapy are well established. What isn't well established is the supply or availability of hydrotherapy services in our city. I believe I'm right in saying that since the closure of St George's Hydrotherapy Pool, there has been as much provision for dogs in our city as there has for people. This can't be right. I think the sale of the barn in Warrington and the proposed hydrotherapy resource goes some way to addressing this need. It would be a much needed resource for the city as a whole, and we would be pleased and proud to welcome this facility to Warrington. I know from residents who used to rely on St George's how much this resource is missed and alternative provision needed. The barn area with a well-used bus route seems to me to offer an ideal site and an excellent opportunity. I would like to thank the Friends of St George's Hydrotherapy Pool for all their hard work to raise the profile of the need for hydrotherapy, and my fellow ward councillors John and Judy for all their work on this, and our council leader for all her work, particularly in her former role as Cabinet Member for Adult Social Care. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Sarah Hillier. We now have Councillor Judy Fox to address Cabinet.
Thank you, Leader. I would like to echo, obviously mine's going to be quite short, because they've all said what I was going to say. We've all agreed with everything that's going on, but I would like to echo all that my fellow councillors have said this afternoon, and just add that I am so pleased and thrilled to have this good news. This will help so many people. What a wonderful facility this is going to be in Warrington, covering all of Peterborough, a really good bus route, and very, very, the occupational and the actual place will actually benefit so many very, very good people. And thank you very much, and I hope you support it. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you so much, councillors, for being here today. It really has meant a lot that you've addressed Cabinet, and it's been heartwarming to listen to your contributions. I really want to thank you on behalf of the Cabinet. And moving on to contributions, debate, questions. Councillor Christian Hogg.
Thank you, Leader. And I'd want to kick off really, first of all, to commend the three Warrington councillors who have done a sterling job of, they've been knocked down, but they've got back up again. And they continued to fight the fight for the hydrotherapy pool. And not only that, they were able to, bring it home to Warrington, their own ward, and a fantastic facility. It's a good news story. There's no two ways about it. However, there is a tinge to this. There has to be said. So, 22, we closed the St George's Pool. It was because there was an urgent need at the school at the time, and yet it took forever for that need to suddenly be realised, and we're only still now going through that now itself. And at the time, there were promises about, the council will look after this chap who we'd severely let down, and ultimately it's taken a change of administration to bring that to the fore. So thank you very much for keeping our feet to the fire. And I think it's a good news story in the fact that we as an administration have taken this and looked at it and said, look, this is not right. We need to even though the promises were made by previous administration, we need to ante up and basically do what's right for the community. And the trouble is that we've got the situation with the Hindu Centre. When we say as administration that we are going to look after these people, the trouble is they don't believe us, because 4 years later, the St George's hydrotherapy pool, the Friends, are feeling let down, and there were empty promises. Well, that changes, is the point. With this administration, we are here to look after our communities, and when we say we're going to do something, we'll do it. So thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Hogg. Very well said. Just to sort of obviously put down that we're covering one aspect that you've given in the way of your example in terms of a statutory duty and how we're discharging our statutory duties, but the other really is about care and consideration of some of our community assets. So I just, for the purposes of the public watching, want to just make that difference, if that's okay. But thank you. Everything that you've said has been welcomed. Councillor Zamir Ali.
Just to add to some of the points, every time I talk about the new pool or the old pool, the hydro pool always comes up. I haven't had anyone that hasn't bought, and there is a lot of feeling in regards to what happened to the old pool, hydro pool, and this will be very much welcome. So thank you, and thank you to, I can say this, my councillors in my ward for me for doing the things that they do. So we do appreciate you. Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Katie Cole.
Thank you, Leader. Having previously taught in a complex needs school for pupils with special needs, I know how vital a hydrotherapy pool is for a range of physical additional needs that children have. So the barn, the disposal of the barn and it being turned into a hydrotherapy pool, I know that it's going to have lasting impact, not just on adults, but also on some very vulnerable children. So I'm really pleased to support this, and thank you for your hard work in this area. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Cole. Councillor Neil Boyce.
Thank you, Leader, and through you. As Cabinet Member for Adult Social Care, I know this new facility will make a significant difference to a large number of residents. I would also like to thank the 3 Wellington Ward councillors, the leader and the officers for working on this and making this a reality. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Neil Boyce. Anyone else like to say anything? Well, this is again a really good news story for our city, and it has been another example of a labour of love. It really has been. I'd just like to thank the Wellington councillors for being persistent in standing up for their principles, belief, and actually one facet that we might overlook is standing with the vulnerable users of the hydrotherapy pool. And I must say, I will stand here and say that I have seen Councillor Fox sometimes in tears over this issue when this first broke. And the St George's hydrotherapy users, who I know that aren't here today, but obviously a whole debt of thanks to them for their campaign, on how they have listened, how they've given us ideas, how they've contributed. And I went to Labour conference last year and I met the people who were at the Institute of Physiotherapy, who gave us the health benefits around having a hydrotherapy pool that in turn decreases the use of our NHS resource. So we've got its merits in adult social care for people who have stiffening of their limbs when we're looking at rehabilitation, people who have strokes, people who have muscular issues, long-term chronic pain, rheumatological issues, people who are recovering from cancer, people who have learning difficulties. Water therapy has been substantiated from an evidence-based point of view of having a calming effect. People who have mental health problems as well. And one of the beautiful things around St George's was that we had people who were employed on reception who themselves suffered from a learning difficulty. So collaboratively, I think this is a huge win for our city. Again, an ode of gratitude to Adrian and officers as well for looking into this and making this a reality. And I hope that it is positive as we move forward as well. Did you want to say something, Councillor Fox?
Yes, yes indeed, Chair. I would like to thank the officers, and they know who they are. I'm not going to name them, who, when I first approached them and told them that we found a piece of land, they were 100% supportive. Sadly, we had to be a bit clandestine, but I thank them, and they know who they are. They're probably in this room. I'm not saying they are, but they probably are. But thank you very much, because it meant a lot, and it means a lot to those people that use it. And there will be a time when I'll come out and say how I really, really feel, but this isn't the time.
Thank you very much indeed. So, after those wonderful contributions, that positive commentary, let's move on to the recommendations, members. So, the recommendations are on page 145, and here I ask our Cabinet wholeheartedly to support the recommendations. Are you content to do so? 145. I've only got 145, but let's say it's 146 as well. The more content we have, the better. Are we agreed? Yeah, I don't have it. Thank you very much. Thank you very much, councillors, and thank you very much, Felicity. But we've still got Felicity for agenda item number 11, which is relocation of the Family Time Centre. This item can be found on pages 163 to 172 of the agenda. Councillor Katie Cole, Cabinet Member for Children's Services, please can you introduce the report?
Thank you, Leader, and through you. I take my corporate parenting responsibilities and safeguarding of children in this city really it is the highest it can be. And this report concerns the relocation of the Family Time Centre to Derby House. A move which is vital to ensuring the continued delivery of high quality support and services for our families. Families that use this centre are probably going through some of the most distressing times being separated, and to me it's really important that those bonds, those familial bonds, are kept as close as they can be in a safe environment. The new location, subject to planning approval, will provide a much improved environment for all users, offering enhanced accessibility, increased comfort and privacy, and facilities that better meet the diverse needs of children and their families. The Derby House centre also has a really nice outside space, which means that families are going to be able to do what families do and enjoy outside space and make lasting memories. This relocation represents a significant step forward in our commitment to supporting family wellbeing across Peterborough and ensuring that every visit to the centre is positive and inclusive in its experience. And I also just wanted to add that meetings and inspections we've had by the DFE or Ofsted have also made it very clear that the services we provide in terms of contact and family time needed to improve, and by relocating to Derby House, that is exactly what we are doing. We are committed to families and children in this city, and this is a huge step forward, and actually something I've been speaking about for the last 18 months, so I'm really happy that it's going forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Cole. Anybody would like to make any comments or ask any questions? Councillor Zamir Ali.
I'm quite aware of the Welland Family Centre due to my other job that I do, and I think this is a massive upgrade and really does need to be changed from the Welland Contact Centre. So that's what my thoughts are in that regard. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Councillor Angus Ellis.
Thank you, Leader. I do welcome the decision to move the Family Time Centre from the Welland facility, which isn't suitable. As Cabinet Member, I welcome that. As Ward Councillor, I know there's been some concerns around car parking raised by residents. This has been dealt with within the planning process, and I know that there's revised plans coming and mitigations will be put in. So I'm looking forward to that, to make sure that everything is okay there, as well as, you know, the move. So thank you.
Thank you very much. Any other comments or questions? No? So, summing up, obviously I think it's really important to reiterate the importance of having the Family Time Centre for the reasons that Councillor Cole has stipulated. Also, I think it's a really good point that Councillor Angus, as the ward member, has made in terms of issues that could arise and how he is able to balance the pros and cons. But again, positive story, helping those in our city who most need it. And we are a child-friendly city, so we're looking at, obviously, a lot of those equations that affect some of our children who are most in need. Now, moving on to the recommendations around this, we're being asked to approve the recommendations as set out in page 164, the report. And are we content to agree that recommendation, members? Thank you very much. Right. And we've got Felicity yet again for our next agenda item, which is agenda item number 12, which is yet again a very positive story, which I'm delighted about, which is relocation of the Alzheimer's Society from 441 Lincoln Road to Paston Farm Community Centre. And the item can be found on pages 173 to 178 of the agenda. Councillor Mohammed Jamil, Cabinet Member for Finance and Corporate Governance, please can you introduce the report?
Thank you, Leader, and through you. As you said, it's another good news story from a group of people who've been messed around quite a lot over the last few years. However, with this move, I do believe there will be a bit of permanency and a bit of certainty, and I think that's good news for all. So the report sets out the recommendation for Cabinet to approve the relocation of the Dementia Resource Centre delivered by the Alzheimer's Society from 441 Lincoln Road to Paston Farm Community Centre. The proposed move presents a valuable opportunity for the Council to invest in and safeguard a Council-owned asset, ensuring its sustainable use for the benefit of the local community, and more importantly, this relocation will enable the Dementia Resource Centre to continue providing essential support services in line with existing contract arrangements, maintaining consistency and a quality of care for its service users while aligning with the Council's strategic asset management objectives. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Mohammed Jamil. Do we have any comments, questions at all? Councillor Christian Hogg.
Thank you, Leader, and through you. I think it's a great use of the building at Paston Farm. I think this is the whole point of that local asset review was to look at our buildings and see how they could be used in a different way, and sweat the assets, as they say. So the question I have is, I just wanted to make sure that although it is the firstly the Alzheimer's group will be going into there, the boxing futures will still continue, but will there also be other, like for instance the community cafe that they run, that we used to run from, will that continue on site?
Yes, so the boxing futures area will not be impacted by the relocation of the Alzheimer's Society, and the cafe in fact will provide those services to their existing facility in 441, so that will be able to continue in this location as well.
Okay, thank you. I'm sure my colleague in Paston and Wilton would be pleased to hear that.
Fabulous. Anybody else would like to make any comments at all? Well, in sum up, I just again like to reiterate this as a success story actually on our administration's watch. I'd like to once again thank officers. We came into an administration in 2024 where I as Cabinet Member had to inherit this condition where the decision had already been made to close the Dementia Resource Centre. So inheriting that, navigating the level of emotion that came with that decision and reversing it to say, well actually this is a fundamentally important population within our city and a community that have a whole host of well-being benefits that conferred by the Dementia Resource Centre to that group. So I'd really like to thank the officers from Adult Social Care who liaised with them, navigating a really sensitive set of circumstances, officers again for identifying an asset that could be used. I think the Alzheimer's Society are pleased, they're over the moon about this. So all in all, everybody here is a winner in terms of looking after that population. So I'd like to once again thank you and yourselves as well, with Michael and Ruth who are at the forefront as our officers who looked after and liaised with the Dementia Resource Centre, and all Cabinet members who are involved, and Adrian too. So thank you once again, and again a wonderful story. So let's quickly move to the recommendations to make sure that we sign this off. So we're being asked to approve the recommendations as set out in the report on page 174. Members, are we content to agree those recommendations? Wonderful. Thank you very much. Thank you, Felicity. Thank you. Moving on. Agenda item number 13 is development of Great Haddon Secondary School. This item can be found on pages 179 to 190 of the agenda. Councillor Katie Cole, Cabinet Member for Children's Services. Please, would you like to introduce the report?
Thank you, Leader. The Council has a statutory duty to ensure that there are enough school places in Peterborough to meet demand. The Council must therefore plan, organise and commission places for schools in Peterborough so that high standards are maintained, diverse school communities are created and fluctuating pupil numbers are managed efficiently. The Great Haddon Secondary School is planned to be the first and only secondary school in the new township of Great Haddon. As part of the Council's Section 106 obligations, a secondary school is to be opened on occupation of the 2000th home. If approved by Cabinet, in order for the Council to meet the Section 106 obligation and need, based on the forecast provided by the housing developers, the secondary school is to be opened by 2029. This project is being funded by a combination of Section 106 contributions and basic need funding and borrowing. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any questions or comments at all from members? Well, I think, again, it's one of our service areas that we need to meet the demand. We are a fast-growing city, and I think that the location of this demonstrates that we are a city that is growing in population, that we also have to serve the needs of that population as well. I think it's good all round. Councillor Mohammed Farouk, being one of the councillors in that area, would you like to make a contribution?
Thank you, Leader, and through you. Yes, as a councillor, although I'm not directly councillor for that particular site, but I have been councillor for Hampton and I have had a business there for 25 years. One of the biggest challenges we've had is school places. And often developers say after the 700th house we're going to have a football pitch, after 1,000 house we'll have that. And here we are talking about 2,000 houses before the secondary school kicks in. Will that have a major impact on school places on Hampton College and Hampton Garden Secondary School? It may not be relevant here very much so, but are we able to accommodate those children or families moving in?
Thank you, Councillor Farouk. So I actually attended a meeting this morning with the CEOs of the city, and Carrie Trail, who is the head of education here at Peterborough, was actually speaking to the CEOs about place planning, looking at where there's a falling role of places or falling birth rate in certain areas of the city, where there is growth in certain areas of the city. And the south of the city is certainly an area where there is a lot of growth because of the Great Haddon development and other developments. So the school would not be being built if there wasn't the need for it. One thing that I have concerns about is with the developers of the area, that we are building a community so that it isn't just a school plonked in an area of housing and there are no other community facilities. So along with the development of the Great Haddon Secondary School, I'm very will be following along to make sure that things like community centres and playgrounds and other assets that are needed for thriving families are actually included within this development, because there, Manor Drive, for example, has just got houses and a school. There's nothing there that can actually support families at the moment. So I'm really excited to present this, but I will be keeping on track that family and community development is included within this development. So thank you.
Would you like to come back on that, Councillor Farouk?
Thank you. I think great answer. Perhaps one other thing we could look at, well, there was two options if the extra spaces are needed. One, we could get the developers to bring down the figure, 2,000 houses, which is much more difficult challenge. But I think perhaps an easier option would be to work very closely with the current two secondary schools, Hampton College and Hampton Gardens, and with that academy, because there are a lot of synergies between that and the new school. And if there are places, they could open up extra classes until such time when the school is delivered. So therefore, everybody's accommodated. The cost for transportation is low, and everything is in control.
Thank you, Councillor Farouk, and I couldn't agree with you more.
Thank you. So, summing up, Obviously, it's critical that we have this school built because of the growing population. That we've, again, a good news story that we are on the up when we're looking at education provision for our children. On the back of that, I would like to actually congratulate John and the team on our Key Stage 2 results. Actually, this is a good opportunity to celebrate that. So that's a good win-win situation. So I can see John blushing. Don't blush. Take credit for it. It's great. Okay. So we'll move hastily on to the recommendations, which are page 179. So members, are we content to accept the recommendations? Wonderful. Right. Agenda item number 14. And this is marketing of the goods shed, Fletton Quays. This item can be found on pages 191 to 208 of the agenda. Councillor Mohammed Farouk, Deputy Leader and Cabinet Member for Growth and Regeneration, please can you introduce the report?
Thank you, Leader. This report simply is marketing of the goods shed. The report seeks Cabinet approval to market and dispose of the council-owned former goods shed at Flatton Quays, originally acquired to deliver the food hall element of the wine project under the Towns Fund programme. Cabinet could not support the previous transaction presented with updated terms to CPF in November 2025 due to a high level of grant funding risk. The property will therefore be marketed on the open market without grant support via a private treaty to achieve best consideration in line with statutory obligations. Marketing will run for up to 12 weeks for transparency purposes with a preference for food and beverage use, although all uses will be considered, including retail, office and leisure. A report will be presented back to Cabinet with the outcome of the marketing. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Mohammed Farouk. Are there any questions or points that wish to be raised? Councillor Angus Ellis.
Thank you, Leader. I think I really welcome this, and I'm looking forward to some good bids coming in for this. I certainly would like something, retail or food hall, something like that. And to add to everything else we're doing, the growth in the area, so you could visit the new goods shed. You can then cross the lovely bridge over to the new swimming pool and the Lido and everything else, which is going to be happening around here. So I think looking at it as in the big picture of all the growth and all the things we're going to be happening here will be really good. So I really look forward to what's going to come from this.
Thank you, Councillor Ellis. Councillor Hogg.
Thank you, Leader. As people may or may not know, that this is my ward. We've in terms of Fletton Quays itself, it'd be really good to see the goods shed moving on. We've got activity that you can see, maybe not so much at the moment, but during the day you can actually see a lot of activity going on with the flats there. It'd be really nice to see Fletton Quays done and dusted. Certainly for those residents that are currently in occupation of the four main units, and dare I say it, also that other unit that's at the top of the road. It would be really good to see that moving on as well. So as has already been said, it's going to look really great once that's done and dusted with the bridge across to university and beyond into the city. It's a really good news story in that respect. I think it's good that we paused a little bit on the goods shed to make sure that the deal was good value for money, and by putting it out into the market, we can get some competition going and see, actually be able to make a decision on which of the various bids we decide to go for. So I'm really looking forward to see what activity and interest comes back from this exercise.
Thank you very much, Councillor Hogg. Are there any other contributions that need to be made? So in sum up, it's a positive story again to tell. We're seeing this part of the embankment actually now growing, and the connectivity has always been an issue, hasn't it? We'll have the bridge, and on the other side of it, hopefully we've got the whole aspiration for a new pool and leisure centre. In line with that, we've got the university, which is thriving and bustling and always promising to see. And then you've got the new retail units here as well, where we know that Bewitched and the Shed are crying out for a bit more of footfall within the area. So I see this as a really a good story to tell, And with that, we move on to the recommendations, which we're being asked to approve the recommendations as set out in the report on page 191, which I will take as read. Are we content to agree the recommendations, members? Wonderful. Thank you very, very much. Now, thank you, Chris. Moving on to our last agenda item, which is agenda item number 15, which is the Joint Statutory Report to Cabinet, Section 5A, 3A, LGHA 1989, Section 114A, 2A, LGFA 1988. This item can be found on pages 3 to 50 of the supplementary agenda published on Friday, the 16th of January. Now, I'd like to thank our statutory officers for bringing this issue to our attention. The Executive is absolutely committed to ensuring that any such matters are dealt with correctly, and I wish to give assurance to the public that we will treat these with the utmost seriousness and that we will be working hard to bring the necessary arrangements into place to ensure that this is not repeated in future. And on that, I'd like to ask Christine Marshall, the Section 151 officer, to introduce the statutory report to the Executive. There you are.
Thank you, Leader. The Executive has before it a joint statutory officers report in respect of emergency accommodation payments. This was issued to the Cabinet and all members on Friday and to our external auditors as required by law. This matter came to the statutory officer's attention as a result of an FOI in June 2025, and a review was undertaken. That review identified that payments had been made that had not complied with procurement, contract and constitutional requirements. As soon as this omission was identified, immediate steps were taken to address it through the issuance of exemption and contracts to those suppliers that would be used during an interim period, whilst we prepared for a procurement process as set out in the report, and that work is well underway. The level of payments is such that the statutory bar for reporting has been triggered, and legal advice attached under exemption to the report sets out that which the statutory officers have taken to confirm this to be the case. The report sets out in some detail the various breaches that have occurred, and in light of this report makes significant recommendations for the Executive to consider. These include the conclusion of a procurement process for this area of spend, training of key officers and a review of all expenditure by service, and for this to be reported to the Council's Audit and Governance Committee during and throughout 26-27. It is essential that officers' roles in overseeing spend, contract and procurement are clarified and where necessary codified in order to seek to prevent a recurrence of such an issue in the future. Thank you, Leader.
Thank you, Christine. Looking to my left here, I'd just like to ask our legal officer, Graham Kitchen, if you'd like to add anything with relevance to its significant report, obviously, isn't it?
Thank you, Leader, and through you, I think my colleague, the Section 151 officer's introduction covers the matter well. I've got nothing further to add at this stage. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I'd like to ask our Executive Director of Place and Economy, would you like to say a few words, Adrian?
Yeah, thank you, Leader. So I think I'd just like to reflect the gravitas that you reflected in your introduction. I too welcome this report, and as the Director with responsibility for housing, want to reassure Cabinet that we are also taking this very seriously. There's a lot of learning in the report, which we will absolutely be enacting upon, and a lot of training and support provided to our officer team. I did just want to reflect the situation amongst housing officers who I think are dealing with some of the most challenging situations day in, day out. And whilst these payments are unlawful as set out in the report, I can very confidently confirm that nobody has acted willingly, wrongly in this situation. You know, they're faced with often very traumatic situations with an individual or a family who required urgent accommodation, and because these breaches weren't identified, the behaviour and the processes became normalised, and they were referring to our emergency accommodation providers as part of that process, in order to avoid a household or an individual from becoming homeless. So I kind of wanted to say that because I think it's important that we reflect the pressure that housing staff are under, and the fact that they are as mortified as I am about this situation, and it will be taken very seriously. I take my job very seriously. I care passionately about my city and this council, so a lot of learning here, but we will address the shortfalls.
Thank you for those reassurances, Adrian. Now, look, there's clearly work ahead of us, and I'd like to confirm that all of our arrangements are in order after reading those comprehensive recommendations. And I just want to say that I and my executive will be taking this forward and supporting our lead officers in the reports that they'll be taking to the Audit and Governance Committee. This is a critical part of our preparations for LGR and local government reorganisation, and our staff resources will need to be used to support this essential work across the council. So I will repeat that. Our staff resources will need to be used. We've already put some immediate implementations in place, which I'm pleased to see, about accountability, which is good. But we will need to use our resource to correct this from the bottom up. And on that, I'm going to ask the Chief Executive to comment on this matter.
Thank you, Leader. I've got a few, I suppose, points and context to make in relation to this issue. Firstly, I welcome the report and full support to both statutory officers for bringing it to our attention as Cabinet. This council has been on a huge improvement journey over the last few years. We had an improvement panel when SIPFA and others came in to assess the council in 2021. They highlighted 3 critical areas. One was the financial state of the authority. Secondly was around governance, and thirdly was around a number of service reviews and arm's length companies and arrangements. What we're bringing here, and one of our values is around transparency. So we're putting it in the public domain around the key issues that we're facing. We've been completely committed to tackle these issues, but I would put in context here, the procurement service was externalised for several years. And I think, to be fair, there wasn't sufficient political oversight or grip or managerial grip on some of these critical issues. And we brought several services back in-house, but the procurement service was externalised. That's quite unusual. So I think there are some critical issues as reflected by officers around what we need to do to tackle it. I think the context also is relevant here. Emergency accommodation is like a daily occurrence in Peterborough. The numbers have come down significantly when you look at some of the data around this area. The numbers of providers are significantly reduced, and the team have worked damn hard to bring that down in terms of the provision that they're having to face. But services are facing tough decisions when they have to place somebody, often on a Friday night when they are placed with difficult choices about who will take that individual when we have a statutory duty. So there are issues that from a safeguarding point of view we take very seriously. And the government has been putting lots of money in, and previous governments, around this area continually, because it's been a massive pressured area. So for me, I think context is important, but we will take, as Christine has highlighted, a wide review of all service directors around accountability, of knowing their businesses. They have service plans in place. We put that in place 3 years ago, that they need to understand, have they got the proper contracts in place? Are they assured around value for money? The audit committee needs to have oversight and grip of this, scrutiny committees, and also cabinet members, as the leaders highlighted, to scrutinise the work going on within your portfolios around value for money, contracts, spend, and assurance around some of those internal control environments. So this report has highlighted a specific area, but I think there are some areas that we need to look at right across the council.
Thank you very much for that, Matt. Now, at my discretion, I invite Councillor Wayne Fitzgerald, leader of the Conservative group, to address Cabinet on this item. Councillor Fitzgerald, thank you very much for attending today. If you could take a seat at the front, Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Kayoum. Firstly, before I speak about what I was going to speak about, I was going to say it's really good news about the Dementia Resource Centre, as you know, as the kind of architect of that, and I saved it many times, and I'm glad it's been saved again, so that's really good news. What I came here to speak about today, and whilst it's kind of clear to me and members of the council, because we're used to the speak that the council speaks, is, and I don't want to say who's to blame, but who's responsible. And it's no point in officers going, well, we weren't here, because Mr. Gladstone is celebrating his 4th year after I appointed him 4 years ago. So this coming to light as an FOI was quite remarkable. But also, the fact is the language used in the report does not do this council any favours in terms of its reputation. And I understand that the officers are bound to make this Section 5 report. But upon reading, members of the public draw different conclusions because they don't understand the inner workings of the council. And it's quite clear to me, and what I came to speak about today, and Councillor Kayoum knows and so does Mr. Kitchen, is that the role of members in this saga that dates back to 2013, 2014 to where we are today, I suspect is negligible. And I just want the officers, through you, Councillor Kayoum, if needed, you're the chair of the meeting, to set on record that actually it's very unlikely that members knew anything about this at all, because why would they? Members make decisions based on information brought to them as individuals, particularly the executive, by officers, or indeed scrutiny. Members make decisions through scrutiny or recommendations. And as far as I can recall, I don't recall any decision being made about the procurement process involved in temporary accommodation. So I want to be clear, because it was put to me over the weekend, somebody's on the fiddle, somebody's had their hand in the till, and that is not the case at all here. This is about contracting with providers, which in my view is solely and wholly the responsibility of officers of this council. And if you read under purpose, it quite clearly says that there was a failure by council officers, not members, but members do get the blame for things. And I just want to be clear, and again, Councillor Kayoum, you could speak as you, but it's probably best that officers might give you the answer in terms of confirming what is basically in the report. But people don't read reports, they read headlines. And the headline and how this looks, a friend of mine says optics. It's how the optics are. Boy, have we got a lot of optics going on within this council in all sorts. And I'll speak more about that tomorrow in full council. So that was really all I wanted to say. And I think it's right that we set out in this public forum, because this is public, exactly what has gone on here and what the role of members is in this, and I believe it's none.
Thank you very much, Councillor Fitzgerald. Well, I really appreciate you coming here and speaking candidly. I will make you aware that as leader, I was in conversation with our Section 151 officer late on Friday night talking about this report. And I was very pleased to have been given a forensic detail and breakdown of the interpretation and what the report exactly entailed. Now, we had a really useful members briefing that you were part of last night. And one thing that I mentioned, and I hope that everybody around the table, not just, but all 60 councillors, I know that we're too short, unfortunately, due to the sad demise of Councillor Nicholas Thulborn and Councillor Alan Dowson, but ultimately, I differ in opinion with respect, and how can I evidence that? So, I'll give you an example to evidence that. When I became cabinet member, and it depends upon your level of interest, and I think that it's really important, this is a learning curve, not just across the board for officers, but for members as well, in terms of our roles, those of us who are privileged enough to be cabinet members who will be signing off reports, and the level of scrutiny and question that we apply to the service directors or those that are responsible in terms of how does this service area work? How are we funding it? How is this being given out? And one of the significant examples under temporary accommodation obviously historically was the St Michael's Gate saga, which we know we would never want to happen on our watch again. But when I was cabinet member of adult social care, there was procurement around tendering for our day opportunities. The report came back to me. I had a look at it, and actually I was very interested to know how the scoring exercise took place, how that procurement took place. I then proceeded to ask the officer, who's been awarded what contract? How did you actually come to that conclusion? How much is each provider going to be paid? And the response quite rightly came back, are you going to be doing anything with the information? And I said, no, but I simply want to know because I'm the one that's going to be signing the check. And I think that there's an element of candour that we all have to reflect upon, to realise that we're all a part of this unit that is responsible for delivering critical services in many cases in emergency situations. So I feel that whilst this is a huge issue that has come to light, I feel reassured that the right implementation and emergency process have been put in place. Some safeguarding issues have been highlighted, which officers have taken on board, which is why a procurement exercise will be embarked upon. And I really do feel that whilst we are elected members, our use really in this privileged position of both scrutiny, we've got scrutiny chairs as well, and those of us that sit in these cabinet positions also entail a level of responsibility and candour. And it's the candour element that I'd like to ask my own cabinet members as well to stress and urge, ask those questions, make sure that we're pestering around how those service areas that we're looking after are funded, how that funding process comes about, and what it entails. So that's how I'd like to respond to your question. And I agree, sometimes the optics around certain situations, and indeed, again, we will be talking about this tomorrow, what we have had to contend with in our uniquity as being an anchor authority here at Peterborough City Council, because we've had an awful lot that we've had to deal with, which is part of what the conversation will be about tomorrow. Candour, that duty of candour, safeguarding our life and death services and making sure that people don't come to harm again, and good value for money for the taxpayer. That is the bottom line. So I think, you know, your contributions are welcomed here. It's important to have, sometimes we have to be comfortable to have uncomfortable conversations. And trust me, this has been a very uncomfortable topic. I'm not sure if any of the officers want to come in at all. Did you want to say something, Matt and Graham?
Well, do you want me to respond to you first, and then others? I'm happy to wait.
Of course, of course.
Okay, I accept what you're saying, but the point is, the report clearly states it's a failure of officers. Now, members have a duty, an ongoing, having been sat in that chair you're in, and having been here for 20 years, I know exactly what goes on. But the point is, you can only know what you know. And yes, you should inquire, but from memory, the procurement exercise was done prior to that. But then there's been a failure by officers to bring a retendering or re-procurement process to the relevant member, whether that's in housing or wherever. But the point is, and the report sets out the responsibility. I don't want to go blame, but I'm just trying to say, and it is 60 members, it's not the administration. Because if it's the there are 60 councillors, right? Where is scrutiny in this process? It's not the job solely of the cabinet or the cabinet member. You know, you could point a finger at whoever it was, and it would be the same when Councillor Farouk was the leader, or whoever was the leader. It doesn't matter. The point is, this council has 60 members, and if it failed at that level, where was the scrutiny of members? So if that's a failing, fine, but every member is responsible for that. But I'm sorry, the report clearly lays out who and where the responsibility lies. And that responsibility lies with officers. And I'm taking that from the report.
Thank you. And whilst I wasn't around in 2014 when I was elected in 2019. I do remember very avidly being told by the administration at the time that my questions were welcomed. So I hope that that has led some way to giving you a level of scrutiny that now this administration is demonstrating alongside the officers, and we will endeavour to support them whilst taking into account some of the past practices that the officers have been very open and honest and robust about in those reports, and I think that we've got to acknowledge that we are fixing it. So, Graham, would you like to come in?
Yes, thank you, Leader, and through you. Councillor Fitzgerald, just to address one of the points you raised earlier on around the suggestion that spend has gone where it shouldn't or been misappropriated. Just want to make clear the report is making clear, is not suggesting, is not suggesting that the council hasn't got what it's paid for, more that the unlawfulness is on the journey that's been taken for that spend to be arrived at. In terms of the report itself, it's concerned with the unlawful behaviour of the council, and as we know, the council is made up of many forms. Officers have their role to play, full council has its role to play, as does the executive. Undoubtedly, there are things here that officers should have done that were not done, but equally there is a role for members to play in terms of scrutinising the acts of officers, whether that be through Audit and Governance Committee, through scrutiny, through Cabinet and relevant portfolio holders. We all have our role to play, and I think there's lessons to be learnt. And that is the takeaway from the statutory report that's been issued, and the recommendations are on that basis. Thank you.
Thank you, Graham. Matt?
Yeah, I would completely agree with that. Can you hear me now? Yep. From my perspective as Chief Executive, there are councillor involvement here and responsibility and officers. So I completely reject the point that you're making around this is just about officers. The issues in this council were well documented in 2021 when I arrived, early 22. Failures around governance, failures around financial management, and failures around undertaking proper reviews of our services. The council had lost track and control of a number of arm's length companies, and the procurement service, as I said, had been outsourced for many years, and there was insufficient oversight. All of this is well documented with 6-month progress reviews, which you and I and others oversaw, which was well documented, and we have come a huge long way of tackling a number of issues. But this is not about just blaming officers. Audit Committee was ineffective several years ago, and several of you have said to me it was pretty poor. It is now much stronger, and it's got real grip and teeth, and that's brilliant. That's important for your governance arrangements. Your monitoring arrangements and governance arrangements were pretty weak several years ago, and there was insufficient transparency around key decisions. We have tackled all those issues, but we are still unearthing issues which we're trying to rectify. This is one of them. So I welcome the report, but I completely reject this is just about officers. There is a role for members, and it is all 60 councillors, and this issue has cut across probably 3 or 4 administrations. So it's not about blame, it's about tackling the issues and moving forward, and that's what we're planning to do.
Thank you.
Okay, may I just make one point to that? That was my question to officers, what is the role of members? And I personally would accept, and Matt, you and I know, because we started on this journey of fixing things back in 2022, I believe. So it's not about one administration doing another, but I'm saying there's a public perception, and there's also the fact, and I'm making the point, it's not about an administration, it's about 60 councillors. Because 60 councillors, whether you're in cabinet or not, you have a scrutiny function, and if that's failed, that is probably correct. That the total scrutiny of all councillors would be at fault. But I don't want people in this current administration or anybody else going, it's a previous administration. Because in my view, it's either everybody or nobody. But the point being in the report, I'm just saying what the report says, which is why I've come to ask that question, because I'm listening to people's views and we're in a public forum.
Thank you, Councillor Fitzgerald. On the point of scrutiny, completely agree with you, and that's why one of the things that we actually didn't buck the trend on was the fact that the leader that we came into administration under, Councillor Dennis Jones, said that we don't want our own members to mark our own homework, which is why he distributed those scrutiny roles cross-party, and that has continued on my watch. So when we look at scrutiny, I think historically there's a lot of questions that we could all ask ourselves, and whilst inheriting a lot of the issues, as Matt alluded to, this is a huge learning curve, and I would say in many respects quite a significant incident that we should ensure should never happen again. Once again, I'd like to thank you for making your contributions. Now, moving on to members' contributions, I've got Councillor Zamir Ali. Let's keep the contributions factual, please, and in accordance with the statutory report, and then we'll move on to Councillor Farouk. Thank you.
I just want to add a comment, to be honest with you. You're applying blame without applying blame to yourself.
I think, would you like to address?
My apologies.
Thank you.
So there needs to be accountability somewhere, and the end sign-off is by the administration, by the appropriate cabinet member. So saying that the officers led me down this path, I think is very unfair.
So we've addressed those points. Okay. Thank you for your contribution. I think the fact that, the statutory report has come, the officers have brought this to this cabinet with a comprehensive set of recommendations where we have rectified, as a result of this FOI, some of those procurement practices, and we have actions to undertake ahead, and we are expressing a commitment as cabinet that we are going to support officers on that process and on that pathway. Thank you. Councillor Mohammed Farouk.
Thank you. Of course, the report is a difficult report, but one thing I want to make it clear, and I want to put a little bit positive, is that this council gets more things right than wrong. And when there are wrong things, we highlight them, we look at the processes, and we make sure that if in future this doesn't happen. I've been here nearly 8 years, mostly in responsible roles. Ultimately, members are responsible for all of it. It's members' names, whether it's a leader, whether it's a cabinet member, it's their name at the door. We have processes in place to safeguard the taxpayers' money and protect the vulnerable. This is simply one lapse in that process. This does not mean that we are getting other processes wrong, or we have followed the other processes or made massive mistakes. So to generalize the whole thing that we are in a difficult place, or we haven't got things right, is not the correct thing. We get most of the things right, and when we don't do it, our Section 151 officer, our monitoring officer, our chief executive put their hand up, highlight it, and put a right procedure in place.
Thank you. A good example of candour. So I was going to say we've now moved on to debates, and thank you, Councillor Fitzgerald. So we can. Thank you very much. And I think the point that you highlight about candour is really important. And actually, to further that point, that we've also in the report going to be looking at our procurement processes across the patch in all departments, which is, again, we've gone further than just the spot purchasing for temporary accommodation and having a look at all of our processes, thanks to our Section 151 officer. Councillor Christian Hogg.
Thank you, Leader. So, yes, it doesn't make good reading. I don't find it helpful to kind of do a Pontius Pilate and try and wash our hands of, try and distance ourselves between us and officers. As councillors, we are here to do a job. We get paid to do that job. Cabinet members, leaders, etc., get paid a special responsibility allowance to look even deeper into how things are done. It seems to me that the situation here was the fact that the procurement process, for whatever reason, fell over, and then nobody then picked it back up again. There was a kind of a temporary thing put in place, and the way I described it was a bit like, you have a path, and then you have a grass verge, and because the shortest distance between A and B is across the grass, that a path was established, and it had been established for so long that everybody thought that was the path that you took. And it just seems to me that it's not helpful for councillors to be saying this is an officer responsibility. You know, as a cabinet member, I take my responsibility very seriously, and it's about asking. We're there to ask questions, and if something has come through and then fallen over, we should be asking, well, what happened to that process? Why have we not? Why has it not come back to me? So somebody at some point, and you know, in fairness, if this was a decade or longer ago, so this was quite some time ago, that maybe to a certain degree, the more modern kind of people that have been in place since sort of 2020 onwards are not as to blame as the ones that were there at the time that this fell over. So I just, you know, I just want to kind of underline this point that we need to stand shoulder to shoulder with our officers. It's all very well that we get our spades and hard hats on when there's a good cutting the cake on the roof of a hotel, etc., and take the glory then. When the bad stuff happens, we need to stand next to our officers and let them know that we are there beside them. Just one further question. I have got a question on this, and that is just kind of to allude to this kind of perception of the public. Am I right in saying that this does not require or will not require any kind of police investigation, that this is something that of a different nature to maybe some of the other things that the council are currently going through?
That's a really good question, actually. I was going to say Councillor Graham Kitchen. You don't want to be a councillor, I'm sure.
Thank you, Leader, and through you, to answer Councillor Hogg's question, we as statutory officers are not aware of any police investigation that regards anything set out in the report, and nothing we have found in arriving at the production of the report would lead us to refer any of the matters to the police.
Thank you. That gives me a warm glow.
That's fine. So have we got any other points that anybody would like to make at all? No, that's fine. I mean, I think we've had enough discussion around this. It would be remiss of me not to say that it's been brought to our attention. I'm thankful for the huge amount of work, and actually not to lose sight of the fact that the huge amount of work to be undertaken in relation to just this one issue when we're looking at local government reorganisation, when we want to make a clean slate, is not insignificant. It is very significant. So do think about that. I will take colleagues onto the recommendations, which are 6.1.1 to 6.1.6 as set out in the report on page 10 on the supplementary agenda pack for Cabinet for approval by the Executive. Now, in this instance, do I have a seconder? Councillor Mohammed Jamil, thank you very much for seconding. And are we content, Cabinet, to agree these recommendations? Thank you. Thank you. On that note, I'd like to thank everybody for attending today's Cabinet meeting, and I hope you all have a safe journey home. I now declare the meeting closed.